to do this with us. I think we'll have a really good time talking.
Yeah.
We both learned so much from you, so it'll be awesome.
Yeah, 100%.
So you guys are going to have to reciprocate because my podcast is coming out fairly soon also, so I'm going to have to get you guys on there.
We're a tag team. You got to get us both.
Yeah.
Done.
Awesome. All right, so CT.
Yes, sir. Here we go, everybody. Welcome back. What episode are we on?
Oh, 3.
We're going 3? We're going,
yeah.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Episode 3, Cutoffs and Coffee. As you see, CT, Coach James, we're back here with our coffee in our cutoffs. Really excited about today's conversation. We have, where do we even start? Owner, Pro Sports and Performance out of Strongsville, Ohio, as well as head coach at PSP Weightlifting, former professional football player. Heavy lifter. Excellent guy. James and I both have an awesome relationship with this guy, so I'll let James get into that a little more. We all met doing the same thing, doing certifications through USAW, and we're really excited to sit down and have this conversation. James, I'll let you take it away and introduce our guy, Reggie Hodges.
Sweet. So, yeah, we're super stoked to have you, Reggie. And CT, summed up your career there. And, you've just done a lot of impressive things, on a scale that's really big in a lot of different areas. Being a Browns fan my whole life, knowing your foot and knowing how deadly it was, always something cool, from that end, just like how flexible and powerful you had to be as a punter. And we'll get into some of that, as we get going here. But, in my career as a strength coach, there's been certain times where like something hit me and it changed the way I completely thought about everything. And taking my USAW level 1 with you was one of those moments. You brought in Al as one of the demo lifters that day, and Brock, and seeing Olympic weightlifting the way it should have been done in person live at those speeds changed how I thought about movement. And I have been impacted as a coach by it. So first, thanks for that. I think, there's the way that you coach, is also super high level from how you communicate with your athletes. So just super pumped to have you. And the first question I want to go into is who introduced you to weightlifting and how long ago was that?
Yeah, cool. Thanks for having me, guys. It's an honor to hang with you guys. You guys are the most energetic, fun group that I get to work with, man. You guys are awesome. I value what you guys bring to the game as coaches, hunger for learning and just your energy level, man. It's really transparent. Your kids are getting better, and it's obvious because of how hard you guys work at it. So I'm honored to help you guys and to be connected with you guys in general. So much love there. I got connected with weightlifting when I was little. My dad was a competitive power lifter, so I grew up in the garage trying to pick up stuff that I wasn't supposed to pick up. Sneaking in there in the garage to try to deadlift something. So that was like routine for us. Was Saturday mornings from probably I remember when I was like 5 to probably 10 years old. We'd get up, Dad had a meet, or Dad had to go train, and we'd help him get in and out of his singlets and in a sweaty gym for hours and hours, just watching him get after it. That was my introduction to like strength in general. It's like my dad's a big man. He was competed in the 242s. He back squatted close to 7, pulled close to 8, and bench 450-ish in clean divisions before drugs got super popular. And he was just a stud. And he introduced me to what being strong was, not only competitively but also as a man also. So I learned a lot there. As far as like weightlifting, competitive weightlifting goes, introduced to it by a gal named Becky Levi. And she has probably the most impressive resume of sports I've ever seen. She was a national champion thrower at the University of Kansas. She was runner-up. She was on the world team trial participants and got a runner-up for weightlifting there, snatch, clean, jerk. And I don't remember what class she was. I think she was a heavyweight. She was the first female MMA fighter to fight overseas in Asia and win. She went beat a Japanese champion that I know they said was unbeatable, and this American girl comes over here and thrashes her. She's just an amazing, amazing woman. She's been a mentor and a close friend I met her in 2005, so 15 years now. And she's the one who taught me how to weightlift. I was at a gym in Fort Wayne, Indiana, called the Speeds Field House, and I was just doing some classic football power cleans that were, straps on, just yanking on it. No concepts of like the front rack position or how to transition to going into the bar. It was just you yanking on it. Just that's what I was doing. She walked up to me and she was like, "Hey man, this area is designated for weightlifters. So if you want to continue to do it like that, I'm going to have to actually step to the other side of the gym." I was just like, "Yeah, whatever." So I'm just like, "Cool, whatever." She was gracious. She was like, "If you want me to teach you how to do it right, I'd be happy to do that also, just to put that out there." And I was just like, "Yeah, all right, cool." So finished my little workout and left. And as I'm walking out, I look over and I see that resume I just kind of talked about. I saw it on the wall, and I was like, "Whoa, this is somebody I need to learn from." So I tucked my tail between my legs and walked back in the back. And I was like, "Hey, I'm sorry for being disrespectful. Please don't hurt me. I'd be honored to learn from you." And since that day, we started over. She taught me anything and everything I wanted to know about weightlifting, as far as movement goes, as far as how to coach it, how to program it. She started me on the trajectory of thinking about biomechanics of the body and physiology and how anatomy plays in and how can we blend it into a sports performance program. And she taught me a lot. So I spent my time in the NFL like focused on snatch, clean, and jerk, and just enjoying what she was teaching me overall. So Becky was the one who really got me started and taught me from a high level very early.
Now, personally, from going, from what you were, the training that you were talking about, like traditional powerlifting, lift as heavy as you can, and then transitioning from that into weightlifting, were you able to feel the difference, on the field as well with how you're able to move and how you're able to produce force?
Yeah, yes, weightlifting was perfect for me because it takes all of those things to be able to accomplish the lift. Like you gotta be pretty aware of your body. Athleticism is just not enough. There's a lot of good athletes who can't snatch, clean, and jerk because they don't have the awareness to do that. But my position was highly detailed, just putting the football, trying to figure out how to hit the ball 45 yards to the right sideline and hit a nickel with the ball. Like that's the kind of precision that you got to have to play in the NFL. So that's kind of where my mind is as far as like how does my body need to operate to be able to make that happen. And weightlifting is the same way. Like you've got to have a good understanding of what your body's trying to do to be able to accomplish heavy lifts done fast. So I spent a lot of time, understanding those principles and learning how to understand those so they could be applicable, and I needed them.
That's awesome. I mean, I see the singularity of one punt, very, juxtaposed, next to one lift. It's one movement, but it's so many movements that go into it. I can definitely see how that would tie into it. I think CT was gonna bring up your transition.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask even before that because playing professional football, not at the level you did, obviously, Reggie, but playing a high level of football. I know I've probably been training the Olympic movement since 2014, right? So maybe 6 years or so now in season, and had always feel explosive, have always felt stronger, more mobile through doing it. But I got a lot of resistance from coaches and athletes, right? And so people who, he must be a CrossFitter was a big thing that people would say. And people don't really understand what we're trying to accomplish unless you sit down and talk to them. Did you see a lot of pushback from that in your weight rooms when you were working on cleans and snatches?
Not a ton, because let me say I was very, very fortunate to have some really good strength coaches in college. Both of them were Olympic weightlifting focused. So nice. Aaron Wellman, he just finished actually with the Giants for a few years. Before that, a guy named Wade Russell. So all 4 years of being at Ball State were with programs that involved Olympic weightlifting. So I that's almost like I just kind of like ushered into it really, really easily. Mm-hmm. From what I'm hearing from a lot of guys from different schools is, the lack of knowledge of how to teach it well and how to teach it safely was the reason that I've been seeing some pushback from high school coaches around, or from even college and some professional guys that, they just don't buy in just because it's maybe not their expertise. Now, we all know that there's so many different ways to make somebody explosive and to make them strong. There's no doubt about it. So if you can get creative with your modules, like you can get the same job done. But as far as the lifts go, that's the weightlifting's king, in my opinion.
Right.
There's data to back that. The drawback, or not drawback, the resistance that I would see was my position, right? Because the punter is usually, punter kickers we're not known for being super strong or really, really explosive. We're known for being skilled guys who have mastered a skill and can do something really, really well, and it doesn't necessarily equate to big explosive movements. And that's how it was seen. That's how it was looked at. So when a punter can, snatch 120 kilos, 125 kilos, it looks like, well, he's going to hurt himself kind of stuff. But we're not used to an athlete that knows how to punt. We're used to a punter that we have to teach how to be an athlete, that kind of thing. So that's some of the drawback that I would see. And I was around some really good strength coaches when I was in the league too. I got kicked around a bunch. I played 8 years. And most of the coaches, I'd say 6 out of 8 of them were cool with it, as long as I could demonstrate that I could do it safely and do it right. And I didn't get too much about it. There were a couple guys who were like, hey, we're going to stick to the FMS, and we're gonna do our unilateral stuff, and we're gonna leg press you a little bit. We'll make sure you're flexible and keep it moving. Those were the guys that I didn't really jive with very well, just because I want to lift and be explosive, and I thought that was best for me. But for the most part, the guys I had in the league were well-rounded enough to be able to teach it to a degree that we could use it and implement it for the team. And some of the guys that knew how to do it well, they kind of like, well, all right, I'm gonna use some discretion here. Like, let's not go super heavy, like week 14 a year. Like if you feel like you want to reg, you feel like you want to snatch, clean, and jerk some, like, maybe take 70%, just get your movement, be explosive, and feel strong. So it's definitely like a little back and forth. But most of the resistance I saw was just from me being a punter, like in the snatch, clean, and jerk.
Yeah.
Did you have, like during these times, did you have like a program that you would write out for yourself and follow, a certain, wave of intensity based on, what type of area, like what type part of the season you were in? Or did you go mostly by like how you felt that day, or a little bit of both?
A little bit of both. One of the things that was interesting was like Becky challenged me to learn different systems. So she said, hey, look at what the Russians are doing, and like go find literature, go read, go write, go study, and like let's lift like that for a year and see what happens to your body. Let's look at the Chinese system. Let's see. Like, I don't have the body to lift like that, but we tried systematically to like teach me weightlifting from different perspectives, so I had a well-rounded view, and not just figure out how to do it for myself kind of thing. So we spent a lot of time with different theories and different thought patterns, and that were prevalent to whatever the times were, and also like we're going to help me develop as didn't know was going to be coach, but help me develop as an athlete. So I had a good grid for like what my body needed to be doing. So we spent a lot of time in other systems just trying to learn and grow.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. I came from, kind of what you were talking about, more to the negative spectrum, where it was push heavy, pull heavy, leg press every once in a while. And I almost have some resentment towards the program that I came from, because I didn't pick up a barbell and I didn't do anything like that. But what I do benefit from is I became a really good bench presser, and I became really good at pulling heavy and pushing heavy, right? So I have that, which I appreciate. But I never got the opportunity to get coached in weightlifting, and it makes sense that maybe the program just wasn't comfortable with doing it.
I think one of the things that's kind of interesting when you talk about that is like most strength coaches from like we're all I'm a little older than you guys, but we're all in the 30s, right? So when we saw strength coaches in high school and college and in the pros, those guys have usually had those jobs for a very long time. Like those guys are, 30, 40 years into it. And 30, 40 years ago, strength conditioning looked completely different. Especially the football athlete looked completely different. Like, in the 80s and early 90s, size was king. like you have got to be big or you can't play. Like
Right.
fullbacks were prevalent. The tight ends were big blocking tight ends, not necessarily like route catchers as they are now. So you train the guys different. As the game changed, the athlete evolved. Now we're fast forward 20, 30 years, we've got nothing but speed. That's all that matters. You have an offensive lineman who weighs 260 if he can run, he's strong enough. Or, your tight ends you have specialized tight ends. Now a 6'5" and 240-pound tight end will get you done, and you don't need the guy that plays 275, 280 that can only run a button hook over the middle kind of thing. So I think that changed strength and conditioning also. Because back then they were training guys in powerlifting. Let's just get them big and get them strong. Like those 70s Pittsburgh Steelers teams, the offensive line used to boast that, every one of our offensive linemen benches 500 pounds and pulls 600. It worked for them. They were running the ball down everybody's throats to win championships, so it worked, right? Now, fast forward, that team, they're going to get run around because the game's. So what I think with that little bit of the disconnect was guys were teaching powerlifting and making guys really big, and they weren't necessarily as fast unless they were just like gifted fast. And now the game is so different that you have to teach speed and you have to teach explosion, and weightlifting now is more prevalent in those weight rooms based on what the athlete needs to do as far as being more twitchy.
Yeah, that great explanation. And I mean, you're totally right. Even what was it, over 10 years ago now when I was in college, we talked about no Olympic weightlifting, no speed work. I mean, nothing like that. Like you said, it was all the training was just grunt work, was just work really hard. We would pull ropes, we would do tug of war, we would wrestle. I mean, all things that, again, I really appreciate as far as just a work capacity aspect, but there wasn't a lot of the technique work. I do want to touch on, and James had mentioned it earlier, kind of that transition now, right? So we have a super successful career in the NFL. You're not only a super talented punter, but you've now become super talented as a weightlifter. When did you make the transition? What was it that made the transition? Did you know you wanted to transition out of playing into coaching? How did all that work?
Yeah, when I got done playing, I took a year and I sat down and I didn't do anything. Let me just go be dad and be the husband and figure that that realm of life out. What's this like? I was lucky to play for as long as I did, and that's 3/4 of my life was football in my hand. So the sitting down now and not having the routine of practice and not having to go make weight and to go train and have an off-season conditioning program and these kind of things. So it was uneasy for a bit. So I just kind of like sat back and enjoyed being done. Kind of wrapped my head around it a bit and started to think about what I was going to do going forward. And during that time, I had two neighbors on either side of me that were high school kids that were talking about their strength conditioning programs. And I was just like, oh, that's an interesting way to think about that. I'm not going to say names or talk about the coaches. But so they asked for a little more targeted help. So I was like, yeah, I'll help you guys. No big deal. So we take them to the gym and teach them how to move a little bit, taught them how to weight lift, taught them how to snatch, clean, and jerk a bit, and just was like, here's something you guys can add to your repertoire as the strength coaches after you work through the stuff that they're teaching, kind of stuff, right? So I was just hands off, but like wanted to help my neighbors. That word started to get around a little bit, and then I had 4 kids in the gym, and then it turned into 6, and it turned into 8, and it turned into one of the coaches in the area reached out and was like, hey, what do you I've heard that you're working with some of our kids. We're happy to hear about that, whatever. So I had a conversation with some people, and I was just like, well, maybe I'm onto something here. So I just kind of sat back and I thought, and I was like, maybe this could be a good groove for me to be able to have some impact. Like that's always been something that I wanted to do, is like be an impactful person and be a generous person. So coaching fit both of those areas of my character first. And then I had the experience to earn some credibility that I've done this before. I know high performance. I know how to teach it. I've lived it. And that's how pro sports performance was birthed. Like Jason has the same mentality as far as like our playing careers and what we wanted to see done and how we could benefit the younger athlete coming up, because we saw a gap there. There's a lot of strength coaches out there. There's a lot of good ones and there's a lot of bad ones, and that's just part of the game. But we just wanted to bring something a little bit different. So we transitioned into, all right, what's some of the stuff that we've learned? Like I got 8 straight coaches and Jason had 6. We've got, 14 guys of, a lot of information that we learned over the time. And we sat down a few nights in a row and got out all our old training programs and looked through it. And here's what we liked. Here's what we don't like. Here's what could work. Here's what couldn't work for this athlete and for this sport. And we really put together a pretty comprehensive and unique program that works for our athletes based on us taking a conglomeration of all the strength coaches we've worked with over the times, and then kind of made it our own. So there's a lot of weightlifting in it. There's a whole lot of speed development. There's a whole lot of mechanical work. There's a whole lot of unilateral work. There's a lot of stuff from some of the strength coaches that we worked with over time. We put together a really cool program like that. So that's how it kind of transitioned. It was really organic. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to go be a strength coach. No, that's what I want to do. It just kind of like life was flowing in that direction. And it fit my character. I had the ability to do it. I had the want to. And then we just kind of was like, there's a gap out there. We wanted to bring, the reason we called it pro sports performance, we wanted to bring a pro style of performance coaching down to athletes who maybe haven't seen that level yet. And I thought that was important. That's kind of where we've been able to separate ourselves a little bit. Not saying that we're not the best. We just have a different model, and it works really well for the people that we serve. So that's kind of how it happened going out of football into the coaching guys.
No, that's awesome. I could only imagine how exciting that probably was when you guys had that idea originally and started compiling all of this information and then retooling it in a way to teach other people. I don't think most people go through, the experience that you had in the NFL and then retain all that information about their strength and conditioning practices enough so to bring it to other people to benefit. That just probably was a very cool time. And I'm sure that's when it's like, you don't keep track of how many hours you spend on those kind of things because you're in it and it's so top of mind. It almost engulfs you.
Yeah, that's a good way to say that. I always feel like what's inside of a person comes out of them, right?
Yeah.
It was in me to be impactful and to be generous. What do I have to give? Well, I've got a long list of accomplishments in sport, and I can pass that along in some capacity down to somebody else. And I'm a nerd, and I like to learn, and I love weightlifting, and I love the body. So it was really seamless. How can I help somebody? I've got the expertise in one area specifically to do so. So let's step into that and be generous.
And again, hearing that story from kind of your training and your experience in the NFL, and then that's when it was okay, I'm going to start working with athletes and I'm ready to give back, as opposed to I feel one main thing that we see a lot of these days is somebody just is oh, I'm going to go be a strength coach. I get an online cert and I start telling people I train people. And I think about how much of a disservice that is. But I feel we're at a time now where more is known about strength and conditioning, that hopefully we'll see less and less of that as we continue to develop in this field. But those are totally two different storylines of coaching and the experience that you can draw from when you relate to these kids is so great because of all the things that you've already been through, that they're going to be going through, and being able to provide that. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really fun. I enjoy that part the most, being able to impart some wisdom based on some of my experience, and not something not a philosophy I heard or principle that I'm trying to apply. It's been a part of my life. So people see that it's authentic when I talk about my experience or whatever. It's not hard to tell because I lived it. I'm not making up something or looking for words to say it. I'm just this is part of my story, and this is how I got here.
That's awesome. So how would you transition that from now you're coaching athletes, PSP started, and then when did it click that you're I need to start a weightlifting club?
Yeah, that was in the beginning plans. We were always going to start a club. That was in the original business model, was how we were going to do that. And my partner Jason, he's been awesome through all of this time. And he's not necessarily a weightlifting guy. He's a strong, Jay's really good unilaterally. He likes that kind of training. He played linebacker, so he's always off one side and doing things that way. So he had a really unique perspective on, and kind of left weightlifting. He was like, Reg, if that's your baby, do your thing, make it grow. So that was always in the plans for us to have a club. And I was excited about it. I enjoyed it. I never wanted to like take over the world or do anything crazy with it. But like if people wanted to learn how to do it, I'd be more than happy to teach them. And I got some of the stuff that I started with was working with CrossFit people who were enjoying, their CrossFit area, which is great. Like, do your thing, just do it safely and do it right. And I found a little, I found a need there. So I kind of went after it a bit and just like, hey, we just went around to some of the boxes and was like, hey guys, I'm not trying to like steal athletes or anything like that. I'm not into that. I don't need to do that. But like, if you wanted me to help you with your weightlifting, I'd be happy to. So I kind of extended myself to the CrossFit gyms in the area, and some of them were receptive, some of them not so much. But the ones that are, I felt like done a pretty good job getting them better and helping them learn and grow with the sports. And it's been fun. So never like I want to have the most successful team in the country, or I want to have the biggest team in the country. It's always been like, third on our business model. Athletes was going to be our primary goal, is to develop the athletes, and then going into third. So it was never like I'm trying to do something crazy here. It was always just like there's another piece of my expertise that I can extend, so I'll extend it.
Yeah, that's something that's really interesting to me with how CrossFitters view Olympic weightlifting. I think there's plenty of examples of people crushing it, from a standpoint of how they teach their people to move. And I think there's plenty of examples on the other end of the spectrum. But I definitely can only imagine how some people might get super defensive, because it's like, what do you mean, coach weightlifting? I already do that. I don't need any help. I feel like that is a common theme in just being a strength coach or being a coach, is like, coaches tend to like to know what they know and ignore what they don't
know. Yeah. I always try like the CrossFit. If you came up doing CrossFit, that's awesome. Do your thing. Like, if you're adding on weightlifting, maybe get some help. If you're really good at like programming and running a gym and whatever, and you've been got into weightlifting because of another modality, like maybe that's not your expertise, and maybe there's some more to develop there. So I'm never gonna go try to coach a CrossFit gym. Like I don't have that expertise. I wouldn't fit. That doesn't work. So I just wanted to, like, same as you guys, it's like just be there for the people who want this to add on to what they're doing, and just be a specialist for people in that regard.
Yeah, I think
I was just going to say, I really think we do have to give, a little shout out to CrossFit, because they're the ones who put Olympic weightlifting right in a lot of people's faces who hadn't seen it before. They could flip on ESPN and see, the CrossFit athletes doing it at a high level, and then that got people into the gym to want to do it. I know the first couple conversations I had about it started there too. Just started at different CrossFit boxes and people talking about the lifts, and then watching the CrossFit games. And so, I think that was awesome that they kind of moved it back to the forefront.
And I really like the work capacity. Like, if you're working with an athlete that already has a built-up work capacity, they're way easier in some ways to help coach and train, as opposed to, that means they've done a ton of movements the wrong way that they have to unlearn. Maybe not necessarily in some cases, but like usually that's kind of like, what we're trying to retrain a movement pattern. It's tough the more times you've done it a different way.
Yeah, you're right. I got introduced to CrossFit from the TV. As I was watching that year that I retired, I was just posted up doing nothing in the middle of the day. The games came on. I was like, and there was, the couple of the more who's the best guy?
Rich
Brony. Yes, he was doing on TV. He was doing a clean and jerk ladder, and I was like, what sport is this? So I immediately Googled CrossFit and then CrossFit gyms. So I was like, I got done playing. I had only done weightlifting in like either a pure weightlifting gym or in a strength conditioning facility. I didn't know, like, when I got done, I was like, I don't know where to lift. Like, where else? Like, what else do people even do this in the public? That kind of thing.
Right.
Conditioning. Then I saw that. I found CrossFit Strong Zone. I met Dave and Max Zard over there, and was like, oh, I got in there and it's not weightlifting, it's CrossFit, but
Right.
they were there. I had no idea that weightlifting was anything other than a strength conditioning modality and a competitive sport. I didn't know that it was it had leaked over into some fitness area, which ended up being really cool. So, and it was just cool. It just helped grow the sport. Like there was that many people who were doing snatch clean and jerk that I had no idea even knew who it was.
Right. But you're saying you didn't jump in there and do Fran the first day and then do Cindy and then do Morgan or whatever the other workouts?
My first CrossFit experience was terrible. And I love the guys over there. They've been great friends forever. I did something hot shots or something. Anyways, it was like 19 cleans and then a 400-meter run and then some air squats and then some overhead. And I was completely gassed and was like, that's not for me. I just need to come in here and go to weightlift. Is that an option? That's super hard.
Yeah. Is that an option? Where do I sign up to do that?
Yeah.
James, you want to talk a little bit about development? Development?
Yeah. So I think in hearing you talk about weightlifting and then, just like the passion for teaching it and teaching it the way, like at its, purest form in terms of how to help people move this bar better. I think one thing that I really take pride in is that athletes that I get to work with from an Olympic lifting standpoint will take that to wherever they go. Because I know that I'm not going to be the last strength coach to work with my athletes if I do a good job with them. And I want them to be confident in their technique, in their understanding of why they're doing these movements when they move on. How do you see weightlifting playing out in strength and conditioning here with our development of our athletes, over the next 5 to 10 years, in the 12 to 18-year-old athlete range? How do you fit that into your puzzle with your athletes, not so specifically with your weightlifters?
Yeah, slowly and over time, but it's got to be a piece of it. I think the most sports, most colleges, and most colleges are kind of not kind of, but they're back into it. I think weightlifting is back on the map as far as a really, really viable option for teaching speed without running kids to death, teaching explosion without just making them do weighted box jumps all day. And there's so much bang for your buck, right? To be able to extend and transition, you guys remember all the slides from the USAW stuff. There's so much wattage that's available in regards of output off the floor from the second pull and through the extension. There's so much bang for your buck for the athlete. I think it fits well to every sport. There's not a sport in it that doesn't need to be dynamically explosive off the floor in a hinging position and all the way extended. So it fits everywhere, and there's different levels to it, obviously, as far as a 12-year-old, maybe just teaching the stability in the back, teach them how to push their quads, teach them how to stay structurally sound as they stand up, kind of thing. That's going to transfer to any and every sport. And then I think for the older kids, when they transition into college, coming from your gym and from my gym, they're well-rounded when they get in there. Mm-hmm. I think that's important for the athlete that's going and wants to play in college. It's not just on the field that's going to get you on the field, right? Having some work ethic and then also being able to train well and train smart really shows well. We've had some underachieving kids that were on the field, as far as underachieving kids that were trained hard and they knew how to lift, and they got in there that first summer conditioning program and they knew how to clean already. And they knew how to, squat properly and push properly, and they knew how to drive through the ground and push off and create force to make themselves run faster. They understood how to turn over and get their hamstring to the ball when they're pulling through and striking the ground. They had those skills developed, and that put them on the field quicker. So I think for the development of the athlete, you're talking at 12 and up. I almost rely on teaching them at a high level early, and then expecting the athlete to rise to the occasion. Jay and I don't believe in teaching to where the kids are at, but teaching to their ability that they think they want to go. And I think the athlete will step up. There's not too many athletes that don't have that drive, right? I don't have a ton of kids in my gym that mom and dad have to drop them off and they're there for an hour. You know, if you come to PSP or you come to T3, you're coming for a reason. And we get kids that are driven, so I don't have to like beg anybody to go hard. Like they come to do that. So now my job is to teach them as best I can how to do that well. All the effort and energy that they come with and want to put forth, like how can I put their body in a position that matches where they're at, where their mentality wants to take them. So I think there's a bunch of gyms. I'm never gonna name any, but like there's a bunch of gyms out there that like get in here and let's just get strong. We'll figure it out later. Well, I don't know if that's great for the long-term development of the athlete who comes in young and wants to progress to go forward. I think systematically building their skill set over time is going to be the most important thing for the athlete, and then teaching them how to structure it into their sport. Like how do we use everything that I've just learned on the barbell or in any type of exercise? How am I going to use that on the field? And that's one of the things we spend a lot of time on is teaching. We almost want to like introduce the athlete to their body in a different manner. Like here's your quad, and here's what it's going to do for you on the field. If you're pushing off to go to your right, what leg is going to be the functional one to make that do that? Which oblique is going to help you stabilize so you don't turn too far, right? How are you gonna function your shoulders and your elbows to get yourself linear from going after pushing off laterally? So we're trying to like here's how to use your body in your sport. You're gonna push off that left leg to make you go right, and your right shoulder's gonna get involved to get you square again so you can take off. Like this is what we want to teach. We teach that to a 12-year-old, 13-year-old. He gets on the field with a bunch of kids who have no idea how to turn. Oh man, boy, does he look good. So I think like that developing that skill set at a high level early gives them a great opportunity to be ahead of the game in wherever they're going.
Yeah, and that's definitely why barbell movements are my favorite in the weight room, is because the automatic feedback a kid gets when they're hearing the right cues and when they're set up in the right spot, they feel faster, they feel more explosive with another object they're moving, and they're having to move around. And that's why I think I've just gravitated towards it too, because of the progress when you get that kid that's consistent, and that's all he needs to be, because you said they come hungry and now they're consistent. The progress in those first 3 months is incredible, and they see it, they feel it, and then they go play and they know it. And I love being a part of that process with these kids, and introducing something that gives them feedback on whether they're being successful in that movement or not. It's a little different too than like if a hitting coach is in a cage with a kid, they get feedback every swing, but that can get monotonous. I've been a hitting coach in cages running sessions, and you could give the same cue to the kid and you're trying to get him to do something and he's getting the same feedback all the time. And to me, this is a little different because the kid has a little bit more control of how they move that barbell sometimes than how the ball comes off the bat.
So,
man, I hope if you're listening, you rewind this about 3 minutes and then listen to all that again, because there was a lot of really good stuff in there. I think the last thing I'll say on that is what we see a lot of times when we start coaching at the college level is you don't really even have to know how good an athlete is on the field when you see them in the weight room. The athletes that move around a barbell and move themselves through space the easiest and the most efficient tend to be, with outliers, right, tend to be the most athletic players on the field. And I think that's good to see, because I think other players see that and think, okay, I want to be like how this guy is on the field. How is this guy in the weight room? And I know when we start with teams, I won't ever ask a coach what position this athlete plays or where they're at on the depth chart, because I'll usually end up figuring it out in the first month or two of training. Like you mentioned, I mean, it's all those little things. It's all those intangibles. Who's consistent, who shows up, who leads the best, who also follows the best, who puts in the hardest work, who asks the most questions. There are a lot of things you see, and I think it's hard if you want to try to be that elite athlete. I think it's hard if you have to start doing that your freshman year of college. You have to start doing that as a sophomore in college. It's going to be tough to make up all that ground, but you start at 12, 13, 14 years old, you're able to make all the progress, go through all those bumps and bruises early, and then just have that kind of carry you into your college and beyond if that's something that you're looking forward to doing as an athlete. So I think that would be worth that last 4 or 5 minutes would be worth another listen there.
For
Yeah,
sure.
I'm lucky. My son's a good example of that. You guys have seen Christian. He's just turned 13 and he's 5'10", 180 pounds. I mean, he's a big kid. He loves soccer. And early in his athletic career, like we put him in everything because he's bigger, stronger, and faster than like all the kids at his age. Like he's that kid. But he loves soccer. Baseball was great for him. Basketball was okay, and he's never really done football. He's not that. He don't want to hurt anybody. Like he knows if he pops somebody good, he's gonna hurt him. Like that kind of thing. He's that kid, just nice like that. But we got to a point where his body was so big and he was so young that he was having a hard time functionally moving himself well enough to be able to play forward in soccer. So he was so big and he just looked slow. And it was like, man, like the kid's not slow. He's just big. He doesn't have the musculature in his body right now to be able to move that weight well enough. So I said, okay, let's not make my kid strong so we can make him faster, but like, how do we help him develop the confidence to be able to run well? It had to come through strength and conditioning just because that was the missing piece. So we taught him, he was 6, 7 years old. I taught him how to just do a barbell squat. And we had a 15-pound bar at home and we would squat and progressed into like teaching him how to like lunge and like started talking to him about like what that looks like when one leg's out in front and how to like push yourself to go forward and faster, these kind of things. So it started to like, he was almost like my guinea pig to see if I could make and build an athlete without using, going crazy, send him to a gym or to some psycho trainer kind of thing that was just going to make the athlete tired. So I just like took my time with him and developed him over a longer period. And he's now in the position where he moves really, really well. He knows his body. He understands, like if you were to coach him in weightlifting right now, he can tell you what he did wrong. He understands that. He gets how to move. He won when he was 11. He won national championships in the U13s. Like taught him how to snatch. He taught him how to clean. Now he's just big and strong and fast, so it works well for him. But what that does for him is like when he's a keeper now. When he's in the goalie box and he's standing in like a hinge position, or like picture the hang position at the knee. He's in that position. He knows which way. He knows how to explode. Yeah. He knows which leg to drive and how to get up and how to transfer his weight. And now he can do it faster and better because he's stronger and he's more efficient. So he's got the toolbox he's got the keys to the kingdom now. Like he knows how to move himself well. And now the stronger we make him, the faster he's able to do those things. So that was kind of like, that was when like the rubber met the road for me. It was like, this weightlifting thing works for me and I can translate that into a younger athlete who's still developing, but it just taught him so much about how to move his body that he puts himself in. He's already a good athlete. He puts himself in like really, really good positions now to do some special things going forward in his play, just because he understands his body right now, and it's continuing.
I remember the last time I saw him, and then a couple of months back from the last time I saw him, it was like he was at my shoulders, and then the next time I saw him, he was already taller than me, and I was like, oh boy, this kid's he's gonna be a hell of a soccer player. I was like, I didn't think I hit any of those growth spurts.
He took a lot of kids' growth spurts.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll use your son, that conversation, to kind of transition into a question that I love asking. And we won't take too much more of your time here, Reggie. But the question that I'm always thinking about as I'm writing new programs or as I'm working with new athletes is, or having conversations like this is, what are we as the strength and conditioning community missing? Right? Like, what is it? We hear a lot of, especially now, it's sets and reps. It's a 3x10. No, 3x12 is better. Is it the progressions, regressions? Is it getting a barbell in kids' hands earlier? I mean, things we've been talking about the last, 30 minutes or so. Is it just the conversations that we need to have with our young athletes about, body position and what's doing what? What do you think are one or a couple big things that we're missing as a community?
Yeah, that's really good. I like that question too, and my interest in maybe a little different than what you might hear asking some other coaches, but we're missing trust and patience, right? We all know how to make somebody strong and to make them fast. Like, that's not hard. You get a 13-year-old boy that his testosterone is flowing, he's growing, puberty's happening, all the stuff that's happening to his body. You can give him 20 push-ups and he's going to get stronger. You could teach him how to drive his knee up and his elbow back and get his core tight. When he runs, he's going to run faster. Like, that's easy. That's the easiest thing that we're going to do as coach. But the hardest thing we're going to do is earn the trust from the parents that it's going to take time. So what we got to do is be able to develop ourselves in a manner that we've earned the trust of the people that are actually going to help the kids most at home, and then teach them to be patient with it. Because the process is the process. Like, there's as athletic as any of the kids that we're ever going to see, they're going to be 12, 13 for 365 days before they hit the next age. That is going to happen. There's no way around it. You can't cheat it. But what we need to do is be able to say, all right, mom and dad, this is the process. Yes, your son or daughter is extremely athletic, but you still have 4 more years before you get to like go to college. So don't put your kid in college just yet. Like, let them be an 8th grader going into freshman, and let's develop them on a long-term plan to get them somewhere where maybe we can touch the top of their athleticism. But it takes a lot of patience. And the hardest part, especially in our field, was we're in the private sector. People are paying us for results. So mom and dad are stroking a check for X amount of dollars a month to say, hey, CT, hey, James, make my kid faster, because 1, I'm paying you for it, and 2, we don't have time because other kids are getting bigger, stronger, faster too. We got to go. So what we've got to do is be able to earn the trust of the parents and earn the trust of the other coaches in the community and say, hey, we have got to be patient with these kids. Let them develop as on their own, right? They're just going to go through their natural processes, but we can't rush it. And that's hard. It's really hard for mom and dad because they're excited about it. You know, little Johnny's playing great and he's the best on the field right now. Oh, what if he goes to the NFL? Like, people get big-eyed really, really fast, right? But if they slow down and go, okay, what's going to be best for him? Well, what's going to be best for him? We got to develop his character first, so that what if he does make it? And all I've done is talk to him about being bigger, faster, and stronger. And yeah, we did that. Well, now he gets in the league and he's a scumbag. He's a terrible teammate because nobody developed his character, because all we did was try to create an athlete that was moving better than everybody else. So where's the patience in all of those? Because if you're going to go to that level, whatever, CT, you saw it, right? There's guys in the locker room that are complete disasters. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Just rough guys that were, just bad men. I mean, it's part of it. But if we're going to do our best and be hands-on as we like to be with these kids, I think earning trust and then continuing to develop our patience as coaches and not rushing the process and letting the kids develop, and us doing a good job of earning relationships so that everybody knows that we need to go slow and take our time, so the athlete we get a whole athlete developed from their athleticism all the way through their character. So when they leave us, they look back and go, man, CT was really, really, man, he taught me about integrity. I get that. And James was talking to me about trust. I need to be a trustworthy person. And now, I'm really fast and really big and I'm playing really well too. And now we've got a whole person that we've actually developed and not just an athlete. So I think that's what I'm missing in the community is this trust piece and this patience piece, because we're rushing to make more money. We're rushing to say, I got a 13-year-old kid at my gym who's unbelievable. You got to see him. Look what I've done with him. So what? Right? I'd rather meet that kid when he's 20. He had a good job. How's he doing in college? His grades good? Is he still playing? That kind of thing. So long-term trust and patience is the most important thing that I think needs to be a functional piece of what we're doing as coaches. And obviously, getting mom and dad to buy into the process of it being slow. So I think that's a gap that we're missing a little bit as coaches, because we get excited about the kids getting better, and he ran 4.84 and now he's running 4.62 and I've done a good job developing. I wonder if I can get him to 4.5, and then we just here we go. And then we forget about the kid actually being a kid and needing to develop in all areas.
Yeah, that's so good. Great answer. Thank you for sharing all that. It would be easy if they said, okay, my son Reggie wants to get where you played. What's it take? And you say, all right, well, it's going to take you showing up, getting mentors, working hard, being kind every day for the next 15 years. And they say, all right, great. No problem.
Let's do that.
It'd be great if it was like that, but it's not that, right? It's not that, because that's how I would say, oh, CT, how'd you make where you made it? I just showed up and worked hard and was grateful and appreciative of everything my parents and family were willing to do. And I did that every single day for 17 years. and then I caught my first professional touchdown, right? But it's just, you can't, those conversations are a little tougher to have.
My favorite story in this regard is my close friend of mine, Benjamin Watson, was doing an autograph signing. And this kid that was 8 years old walked up, and his dad was like, "This is my son. You know, he's been killing in the league, and he's just better than everybody. And he's gonna. Tell him what he wants to do. Tell him what he needs to do to get in the NFL." Benjamin looked at him, and he was like, "Dad, how far did you go and play?" And he goes, "Oh, I played a little junior high ball. Coach didn't like me my sophomore year of high school, so I never got to play varsity. But I was
Sure,
good,
sure.
that kind of thing." And he was like, "All right, cool. Like, what's your wife do?" "Oh, well, my wife was an athlete." "No, she wasn't. She wasn't an athlete at all." And he said they were both 5'8", 310. Little man was, already 5'8" and 260. And
Yes,
he was like, "Man, Dad, you didn't really do him any favors with the jeans. Why don't we just let little Johnny play football and have fun? And let's take the sting off of, like, let's turn this kid into a professional athlete because he's good when he's 8. You didn't help him with genetics. You actually hurt him there. So let's not
you set him back."
He said this to this dude in an autograph signing in front of people. I was like, "Benjamin, what are you doing?" He was like, "Dude, somebody's got to tell these kids, like, genetics is a part of it. Like, it plays a major role. Like, you don't look like CT just because you want to work hard. Like,
Oh, that's funny.
there's some serious genes there."
Yeah. And he was no slouch himself, Benjamin Watson.
Right.
Man.
Right.
But I just love that for just, like, parents, slow down. Let's trust the process. Take the time.
So good. Right.
And that honestly takes some courage to say to a parent, that's a tough conversation sometimes. And I'm sure we've all had them in our own way in the people that we've worked with, but that is definitely a tough conversation to have with a parent, but it needs to happen.
Yep.
I think it's an important step in that kid's growth as a human being to kind of have realistic expectations from his parents on what's going to happen. We'll close up. I got one more question for you, Reggie. And I'm a nerd too. You mentioned being a weightlifting nerd. I really want to hear your take on what you've seen in the last 10 years. Just a couple highlights of really impressive things out of USA weightlifting specifically. And then what do you think the next 10 years kind of holds for USA weightlifting and where the sport itself is going?
I think the most impressive thing that's happened over the last 10 years is USAW weightlifting as an organization handling the growth that came. It's been explosive. I don't remember at one point there was like 10,000 people and it jumped to like 37,000 people within like a year and a half or something like that. And they honestly weren't staffed for it. They had a transition from the old CEO to Phil Andrews, and Phil has been crushing it as far as like organizing and keeping everything like going, keeping coaches included, keeping the athletes developing, keeping like being forward thinking as far as like what are we going to do for competitions and these kind of things. But the last 10 years, like them handling the growth of the sport has been unbelievable. They didn't. One of the things I also liked was they didn't demonize CrossFit. They embraced it. And they said, "There's a lot of our athletes coming from here. Let's embrace the sport. How do we serve them? How can they serve us? How can this be like a synergistic kind of thing to where we're just about the athlete first?" And that's what's been really, really impressive from USAW. JP Nicoletta's a phenomenal leader. He's done such a good job in that area, and he's such a like logistical guy that things are getting done at a high rate and a very clean rate based on just like them communicating well and doing a good job internally. And us as coaches, we feel it. We know that they're working really hard to manage all the growth. In the next 10 years going forward, who knows? I mean, it's just going to keep growing. People are into it, and rightfully so. I mean, it's the best sports in the world. I mean, it's amazing to feel that, from 5 years old to 80, people are still lifting, still snatch, still clean and jerk, and I love that. So I'm with you. Like, I'm interested to see where it goes over the next 10 years. I think it's going to go to a space where we develop even better models of how do we be more connected as coaches, and how do we do a better job with our athletes, and how do we cement ourselves on the world scene even more now that some of the druggies are out. We're seeing clean athletes, clean USA athletes on podiums. We're getting in the 8 sessions in world championships and doing a strong job there. So I think we're going to see more in that direction, just based on the diligence and the efforts put by USAW as an organization.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see where it's going. It's fun watching, rolling back the old videos of like the IFW worlds and watching the old sessions of, even the old weight classes, what those were. And then, as you get closer, being able to like actually pull up a video where there's somebody from the USA lifting in one of those sessions that I'm pulling up to watch, just, and that's really cool. I'm excited to see what they start doing at the university level as well, making it a collegiate sport. That's something like I would love in 5 years to be a Division I, Division II, Division III collegiate sport, whatever level it can be at. But that's one thing that I'm really hoping for to happen in the next 5-10 years.
Yeah, that'd be great. There's a couple of there's some pioneers out there trying to get that done. That's been cool. I'm hoping to see that also.
Yeah, I think there's about 11 right now. It's like 11 or 12. It's around that number, but hopefully it'll keep doubling, and it'll be at every college, hopefully, at some point.
That'd be so cool.
Hey, and let's finish with this. For everybody who's been with us the whole time and saying, man, I love listening to Reggie talk. I really wish you'd put a book together for something awesome like that. What do you have to tell these people who are asking that? And also, would you at all tell us quickly about your NFL record, your NFL rushing record?
Yeah, so
that'd be cool. I'd like to hear that.
I'll do the football thing first. So I hold the record for the longest run by a punter in NFL history. The intro to that lets you know that it's not really much. If you got a longest run by a position on whatever, no big deal. But
the specificity of it,
yeah, it's very, very specific record. But it was cool, man. That's one of the things that I got to experience throughout my career was getting to do something that hadn't been done before in a space where everything's been done. I think that's something I hold pretty special. It was just a blast, man. I had such a good special teams coach that we were playing against the New Orleans Saints, and they were very, very heavily man-to-man on their punt return team, and they were so well coached that we just took advantage of it. We knew for sure that if they were in a 6 box, that without question, wherever our punt team goes, they're going. So the coach Seeley was just like, here's how we're going to do this. We're just going to snap the ball and run to the sideline. So that's what we did. He snapped the ball, and guard center tackle literally went laterally to the sideline, and they just got chased, and it opened the hole the size of, I think it was at least 25 yards of a hole. So I take off down the field, and the returner, he made a misstep. I don't want to dog him. He made a misstep, and I went the other way and kept going, and almost scored. I was 9 yards away from it. If only I had CT's kind of speed, I would have scored for sure.
Would have made. Well,
it was
not an easy guy to tackle either, right? You were what, 230 or so? I was
like 232, 233.
I'm not sure the returner was accidentally made a move the wrong way. I'm sure he's not trying to bring it down.
I told everybody in the locker room that if we run this play, I am going to be on Sports Center for smashing a returner. I was going to put my forehead in his chest, and I don't care, get the first down, but I was going to run somebody over. That was the gig. And then I just ran up. I ran up, and he clearly was going to go low, so I just made a little something happen, and then I was like, okay, I guess I should probably keep going. My plan's out the window.
Yeah. Which I'm sure it still ended up on Sports Center.
Yeah, it was cool. Last year was the 10-year anniversary. It was on. It's hilarious. They show that every year on Mike Wilbon and those guys. I know those guys a little bit, so they show it every year. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, 68 yards. That's an impressive rush for any position, especially for a specialist. Yeah, tell us about that book a little bit.
Yeah, the book I'm excited about. I'm over the moon excited about it because what I've done is I'm a Christian and I love walking with God, and I've always been intrigued with my best self right? So like, how do I thrive? That's the title of the book. How do I thrive and really, really be the man I want to be at home, the man I want to be on the field? How do I do that? And I think one of the things that happens is, as Christians, we love God and we'll do our best and these kind of things. But what we do is like we put stuff in front of him. And there's a very, very clear picture in the Bible about not doing that, about letting God be first in our hearts and our minds and in our worship. And what we do is we put stuff in front of them. And as athletes, it's our sport that goes in front of them. We train so hard and so long, and we do so much to try to get better at our sport that God winds up on the back burner. And we wind up, we've all been in a locker room saying a prayer before the game, like doing a deal with God. God, if you just let me play great, let me hit bat 1,000 a day. Let me get a home run or catch 3 touchdowns. Let me figure this out, and I'll stop doing the things that I'm not supposed to do. And guys try to make that deal with God, and it's a position that's not healthy for us spiritually. So the book is centered around the idea of my best effort and God will equal thriving. So as long as I have God in the right alignment, meaning he's first and my sport is also important, and not my sport is first and then God's kind of involved. So when your purpose and your identity meet, that's when thriving happens. So what I did was like make this practical. Like, how do I do that, Reg? That sounds really good in theory, that if my purpose and my identity line up, I'm going to do really good things for sure. But how do I do that? And what I did was I took an athlete perspective. I said, okay, there's 10 athlete experiences that are going to happen to every athlete, no matter what. And there's a biblical principle that I can marry to each and one of those athlete experiences that will get the athlete to meet that equation of identity and purpose and thriving. So what'll happen? An athlete will play poorly. It's part of it. Every athlete's going to do it. The biblical principle that needs to be understood that we can navigate playing poorly well is grace. If we have an understanding of grace and an understanding of poor play, we'll give ourselves a little break. Because as athletes, what do? We play bad. Man, we wear that for how long? I remember being a young athlete, I would play bad in week 1, and then I'm still thinking about week 1 and week 6, and what did I do with those 5 weeks in the middle? And I just beat myself up, and I never gave myself the freedom or the space to go, all right, that sucked. I didn't play well, but the grace that God's shown me, the grace that I need to show myself is applicable, and it's in the Bible, and I can use it in this scenario. I'll come out of that. So when you understand your bad play isn't the end of the world, and that you are loved by a gracious God, and you understood the principle of grace, your bad play now becomes thriving. And you can navigate a tough situation really, really well just because you've understood the athlete experience that's inevitable and a position of grace that you can fix in your heart, and you will thrive out of that. Same thing happens if you play good, right? There's so many of these, and it's just like, I just want to help athletes. I want to help Christian athletes understand, like, how do you walk with God and play well and have a good athlete experience? Not just bog down and equate your whole experience as an athlete to your numbers or to your stat sheet or whatever. There's more than that out there for you. And I want to encourage athletes to figure that out. Figure out how to thrive as an athlete in your sport and just really, really live your best athletic experience. If you play good, you better understand humility. So that play I just described, I got pretty popular pretty quickly. And if I didn't have a good understanding of humility, that could have ruined my career. We've all seen that athlete that skyrockets after a big season, and all of a sudden they're the biggest thing out there. And they haven't understood humility. What happens? Pride comes before the fall, man. Right? We've seen athletes in a bad position just on playing well because they didn't know how to handle it well. So the thriving aspect of playing well is humility. So when I play good and I walk in humility, man, I'm in the sweet spot, if you will, and I'm thriving. So that's the premise of the book, is how do I get athletes to understand the correct alignment, God first, and your sport, and you're going to wind up in a good spot. So it's called Thrive. It comes out in July, and I'm beyond excited to like empower some young athletes to do the whole work, not just athletics, to be the whole spiritual being that we're supposed to be.
That's something to look forward to.
Yeah,
that's awesome, man. Just I couldn't think of a more like fitting topic for you to write a book about, man. That's like, wow, like you walk that every day. Like that's the energy you give off when you coach and when you work with athletes and when you coach coaches. I'm really excited for that, and that's something for everybody to look forward to. You said July, so it's coming out in July.
Yeah, that's the goal. We got to figure out this whole virus thing, but I would love to get a bookstore open so somebody can go in there and get it.
That's awesome.
Where can everybody find you, Coach? On Instagram, on Facebook, on?
Yep, all of it. So I'm Reggie_Hodges across the board: Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. Reggie_Hodges. I would love to connect with you guys.
Awesome. Well, I'll speak for both of us with saying thank you so much again for this. This is incredible having you on. You've done so much not only for the sport of weightlifting, but so much for James and I personally that we really appreciate having you. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and sharing your time, and we're really looking forward to the future, the next 10 years of weightlifting, of July when the book comes out. A lot of really awesome things to look forward to. So again, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to having another conversation here soon. And James, you got anything else?
Thanks, man. Reggie, you're awesome. Always great conversations. I'm always looking up to you to see what you've done with your weightlifting, and I've really appreciated you as a mentor in that regard, as a weightlifting coach and as a coach and as a person. So I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, man. Love y'all boys. We'll do it again soon.
Hell yeah.